I've fallen for a man I really shouldn't have. In public, I call him uncle, but when we're alone, he pulls me close and holds me tight. Ironically, he still smells like another woman's perfume. Uncle, are you really getting married? Admits it easily, ignoring the fact that I've been his lover for years. His name is Christian Norris, friend of my father's. Ding His Novel reminds you to click the subscribe button in the bottom right corner to read the full story. Lainey, come here. As soon as I opened the door, I heard Christian Norris calling my name. He was sitting on the leather sofa in the living room, next to a woman with wavy hair and bright red lips. Christian had his arm around her waist, so close, so intimate. I lowered my eyes and quietly walked over to him. Call her auntie, Christian said calmly, as if he was talking about something unrelated to him. His words felt like a dagger, stabbing straight into my heart. I bit my lip, unwilling to speak. The atmosphere froze. Finally, the woman tried to smooth things over. Oh, it's okay if you don't want to call me that. Lainey might just be shy. No big deal, I whispered. Some sweet nothings, and then Christian left to see her off. I changed into my pajamas, went to the bathroom to brush my teeth and wash up. Suddenly, I was embraced from behind. My hands froze as I was washing my face in the mirror. I saw Christian's face. Uncle, I called softly. He tightened his grip around my waist as if trying to pull me into him. Ironically, he still carried the scent of another woman's perfume, Black Opium by YSL, a scent known to drive men crazy. Christian leaned close to my ear. Why didn't you say anything just now? I turned on the faucet and looked at him in the mirror. Are you really getting married? A cold shiver ran through me, mixed with his response. Her father is my biggest business partner. Marrying her would be a win-win. I almost forgot he's a businessman, someone who only cares about what benefits him. I gathered all my strength and slowly pried his fingers off me, one by one. Christian looked surprised. I looked at him, feeling my strength fade away, and weakly said, Christian Norris, let's end this. I first met Christian when I was 15, at my father's funeral. He was dressed in black, came up to me, and wiped away my tears. His face was stern, but his actions were gentle. I managed to ask, Who are you? He paused. My name is Christian Norris. I'm a friend of your father. And he took me into his house. At first, I was very reserved, couldn't relax at all. But Christian treated me well, really, well in terms of food, clothes, and daily needs. He never let me down, except for makeup. Except for makeup, some girls secretly wore makeup. I was tempted and used the pocket money Christian gave me to buy lipstick in secret, but as soon as I put it on, Christian came home and caught me. His eyes fixed on my lips, making me shiver. I'll go wipe it off. Stop, he said. He took a damp napkin, folded it with water, and gently came toward me. The cold touch made me want to step back, but the wall behind me left no room. Christian seemed like he was sculpting a piece of art, wiping carefully, not leaving a trace. When he finished, he softly said, You're not allowed to wear makeup. Next time, just be a clean girl. I remembered that phrase for years. He called me a clean girl, but it was so ironic. He loved women with heavy makeup and bold styles, yet he wouldn't let me wear any at all. Did he hate me? Even in my dreams, I would see him and whisper, Chris, don't hate me. Then turn over. He kept talking in my sleep, saying, Can you try to like me just a little? I thought I heard Christian say, okay. I must have been dreaming. How could I really hear him say that? Growing up, I secretly loved him, even though I knew he was the most horrible person in the world. The day of my high school graduation was also my 18th birthday. It was the first time I openly defied Christian's control over me. I went to a bar and indulged myself, ignoring his endless phone calls. When I finally stood at the door of my house, I sobered up in the dimly lit living room. Christian was sitting on the sofa, holding his phone, the only light in the dark room. KN, you're back, I heard him say. I closed the door, leaned against the shoe cabinet, and softly replied, HM. Christian put down his phone and got up, walking toward me. The sound of his leather shoes scraping across the floor made my heart race. Melanie, his voice carried a tone of judgment. Christian cornered me. His hand touched my neck, then suddenly tightened his grip. A surge of suffocation flooded through me, and I struggled to speak. "Uncle, it hurts." Only then did he let go. I gasped for air, feeling like I had narrowly escaped death. "You went to a bar," he said, his voice sharp. "The smell of alcohol on you was so strong, even though you were outside for a long time, it didn't fade." I didn't deny it. "Do you know what kind of people go to nightclubs? Especially girls your age?" Christian's words were like pearls, clear and precise, but they carried venomous messages. "Only those who sell themselves go there." In the silence, he released his hold on me, creating distance between us. "Go take a shower. You're too dirty." He always had that superior attitude, acting as if I should obediently do whatever he said. I spoke softly then. "Would you buy what?" I hesitated for a moment, gathering all my courage. Leaning into his chest, I hooked my arms around his neck. "If I sell, would you buy it?" I asked in the most seductive tone I could muster. With all my strength, before Christian could respond, I kissed him directly. It was my first kiss with Christian Norris. His lips were thin, cool, with a fresh taste. I tried to pry open his teeth, but he pinned me against the wall with his grip on my shoulder. "Melanie, are you crazy?" Most roared, furious. Seeing his angry expression, I suddenly felt a bit of satisfaction. "Chris, I'm not obedient at all," I said. "I've never been the good girl you thought I was, nor the caged bird you control. This is the real me who's liked you for so long." Even many years later, I still remember that night. I finally broke free from rationality deliberately, provoking Christian until he lost control too. The blurry memories swayed body and mind, losing their grip, sweat dripping onto my collarbone. All the entanglements with him afterwards stemmed from that night. I personally opened Pandora's box. "Hey, handsome, you're here again. How long has it been? And you still haven't won over our boss?" The man standing in front of me blushed deeply. His name was Carlos Albin, my college classmate, and the one teasing him as my employee, Riley. Because of Christian. I was never really good at social interactions, especially with guys. He always interfered with my social life, making it hard for me to have normal interactions with ordinary people. Carlos was an exception. During our freshman year, he'd always find ways to talk to me, sit next to me in class, and shamelessly invite me to watch his basketball games. Most of the time, I'd respond perfunctorily, but he didn't seem to care about my indifference. After graduation, I rented a shop near the school and opened a dessert shop, my current business. When Carlos found out, he started coming by. Every other day, sometimes not even talking, just ordering a tiramisu and sitting with me until closing time. Over time, all the employees knew Carlos was pursuing me. This was already his third year of persistence. Riley, teasing him, went back to the kitchen with a grin, leaving us alone. I checked the bills, ignoring his presence. "Lainey, I bought movie tickets for tonight." "No time," I said softly. I interrupted him.
Carlos held 2 blue and white movie
Tickets in his hand. The next time, Riley came out with a cake, overhearing our conversation. She nudged my shoulder. "Go on, I'll be here tonight." "Why don't you go?" I looked at her. "Are you that free?" She shrugged and didn't say anything more. Carlos found a quiet corner to sit in, lowering his gaze silently. I finished checking the bills when my phone's notifications sounded. I unlocked. The screen was a message from Norris Group's president and the only daughter of Gasly Media announcing their engagement today. There was a picture too, Christian in a black suit wearing gold-rimmed glasses, Kelly Gasly in a white long dress that reached her ankles, her arm hooked through Christian's, her head slightly leaning on his shoulder, smiling sweetly. My phone slipped from my hand and hit the table with a sharp sound. Riley noticed something was wrong. She put down the cake she was holding and asked, "Are you okay?" I shook my head. My eyes were fixed on the tiramisu in Riley's hand. That hadn't been delivered yet. "I'll take it to him," I said. Carlos looked lost in thought. When I reached him, he was still in a daze. I placed the cake on the table in front of him. "Thank you," he said. "It's nothing." Carlos suddenly looked up at me, his eyes full of disbelief. I realized I had never taken the initiative to talk to him before, let alone bring him anything. This was the first time. The warm yellow light between us added a layer of warmth to the atmosphere. Carlos Albin, do you still want to go see the movie together? Back in 2014, a film called Fleet of Time was released, and it immediately became a box office hit. Carlos bought tickets for the very back row, right in the middle. For the 10 p.m. show, he thought that girls my age preferred youthful, painful, sentimental stories. It was obvious he had done his homework trying to pursue me, but he was wrong. I absolutely hated those kinds of movies. In the story, even if the male and female leads ultimately missed each other with regret, they always had those youthful memories and the innocent excitement of first love. Looking back years later, they might sigh with emotion, but they would never regret it. I was different. When my heart first started to stir, I fell for someone who would never like me back. Waiting for someone who would never wait for me. He never showed the male lead's care, protection, or fear that she might get hurt. He only spoke coldly with indifferent eyes, never sharing warmth with me. Thanks to Christian Norris, I became someone afraid to love. So I hated these movies. I hated their endings where they smile at each other and let bygones be bygones. Carlos noticed I was distracted and thought I didn't want to watch the movie. He said cautiously, "If you don't want to watch this, we can change it." "Don't know what you like, so I just bought a random show. Sorry." "It's okay," I said, taking the movie ticket from his hand. My fingertips lightly brushed his palm. Carlos's neck turned red quickly. "Let's watch this," I said. By the end of the film, the girls in the cinema were crying all over. Some girls with boyfriends cried in their boyfriends' arms, while others wiped their tears alone. Some girls asked their boyfriends if they would cheat, like the male lead in the movie. I didn't react much, but when we left, Carlos saw my cheeks. "Lainey, are you okay?" Only then did I realize I had cried, while others cried immediately after watching. It took me 10 minutes after leaving the theater to start shedding tears. I didn't know why. Maybe because I saw the female lead confused and seeking revenge, giving away her first time and having to end a life that shouldn't have existed. That line was deeply imprinted in my mind. If this child were yours, how wonderful it would. B. It was nearing dawn, and not many restaurants were open on the street, and I hadn't eaten yet. More embarrassingly, my stomach growled at the worst possible moment. We were walking when the smell of a hot pot restaurant wafted over from the roadside. Carlos looked at me with a smile. "To have hot pot." I nodded. There weren't many people inside the restaurant, and we sat near the entrance, ordering a half-and-half hot pot and a meal for two. The steam filled the air, carrying the spicy aroma of the hot pot. I took a few bites of beef and started coughing from the spiciness. Seeing this, Carlos asked the waiter for a can of orange juice. Suddenly, my phone rang, and the screen lit up with a contact name, Uncle. I hung up. A few seconds later, it rang again. I hung up again. This kept happening repeatedly until Carlos said, "Maybe you should answer it. It might be something important." I rolled my eyes. He never has anything important to tell me. I placed a slice of potato into his bowl. "Let's just eat." 10 minutes later, I saw a familiar pair of men's leather shoes. The owner of those shoes was standing right in front of me. Those shoes were a gift I had saved up a long time to buy for Christian, secretly working part-time jobs. Kelly Gasly scolded me without pretending to be an outsider. Her sharp voice made sure everyone in the hot pot restaurant could hear her. "Chris has been going crazy looking for you, calling you nonstop. It's almost 2 in the morning. He hadn't installed a tracker on your phone? Who knows when we'd have found you? Girl like you shouldn't be out alone in the middle of the night." What did she say? The hot pot continued bubbling in front of me, and Kelly's words kept echoing in my mind. "If he hadn't installed a tracker on your phone?" I looked up to see Christian standing there, backlit, wearing the same clothes I saw earlier today, sophisticated and stylish. Only I knew he was really a beast inside. I staggered to my feet, and Carlos, worried I might fall, quickly stood up and grabbed my arm. Christian's expression darkened. I spoke carefully. "Did you put a tracker on my phone?" He didn't answer. Instead, he grabbed my other arm and pulled me forcefully to his side. "Let's go home," Christian said coldly. His grip was too strong for me to resist. Kelly followed us, and Carlos grabbed his coat, ready to chase after us. I mouthed. To him, "Don't worry. Outside it had started pouring rain, lightning flashing across the sky, thunder rumbling. Christian yanked me into the back seat and shoved me inside. When there were other women around, I could only sit in the back. The passenger seat was never just mine. I was getting tired. Christian seemed like he wanted to say something to me, but after a few seconds of thinking, he didn't speak. He shut the car door and casually walked to the driver's seat. He glanced at Carlos with a look of disdain, then quickly looked away and drove off. Christian deliberately drove fast, splashing water onto Carlos's overly obvious move. I wanted to roll down the window and apologize, but no matter how I pressed the button, it wouldn't go down. In a fleeting moment, I caught Christian's gaze in the rearview mirror. He gave me a warning look. I finally lowered my hand, leaned back in the seat, closed my eyes, and didn't want to interact with him at all. Carlos was a good person. He shouldn't be dragged into the mess of my life. Christian first took Kelly home at the entrance of her residential area. The two of them stood not far apart, very close to each other. If I wasn't mistaken, they were kissing. I could see everything clearly from the car. It wasn't until 10 minutes later that Christian came back. I kept my eyes closed so I wouldn't have to talk to him. Lainey, Christian called again. I pretended not to hear. I ignored him. He got a little angry. Then I slowly opened my eyes and softly said, "What's up?" Maybe it was my gentle voice, but his anger noticeably eased, and he asked, "You sleepy?" I responded with a hum. Christian didn't say anything more, but gradually increased the speed of the car. 20 minutes later, we arrived home. Well, it was his home after all. My short-lived father had passed away when I was in my teens, trusting me to his closest friend. Living under someone else's roof, you have to act accordingly. I opened the car door feeling dizzy and lightheaded. Sitting in the car for too long made me feel suffocated and anxious. My mind wasn't entirely clear. The underground garage was empty, and my footsteps echoed loudly. Christian followed behind silently. We walked in silence to the elevator, pressed the button, and entered the apartment without a word. Once inside, I changed into slippers, too tired to even wash up, just wanting to collapse onto the bed. My head was spinning badly. Just as I was about to reach the bedroom door, Christian called out to me, "Lainey." I gripped the doorknob, using the last bit of my strength. "Uncle, what's the matter?" Little did I know which word triggered. He suddenly strode forward, pulling me over and pressing me onto the living room sofa. This action cleared my mind a little. I looked into his furious eyes, confused about what was happening. "What are you doing?" I tried to break free from his hold, but it was useless. "What am I doing?" Christian seemed possessed, biting my earlobe and sending shivers through me. This familiar action reminded me of my 18th birthday. "Melanie, you smiled so happily at him, didn't you? You were eager to distance yourself and had already found someone else." Christian's fingers slid over me, pushing my shirt up to my chest. The touch was cold. If he knew how dirty you are, would he still like you? I thought of Carlos's dimples when he smiled, his persistence, how he kept reaching out despite my repeated rejections. Suddenly, I felt like I might not be worthy of him. Christian Norris, no. I didn't call him uncle. I'm not clean, and he's no better. We're both devils, fallen into hell. Neither is better than the other. Carlos is 1,000 times, 10,000 times better than him. You have no right to mention him. Christian suddenly gripped my waist tightly with both hands. "I'm dirty, Melanie. Do you remember? You asked if I'd sell myself. Would you buy?" That night on the sofa, in that same suffocating darkness, I said those words and did what I'd always been afraid to do. I will never forget it. Christian pinned me down firmly. "Tonight, I'm buying you," he said roughly, treating me like an object to be used at will. I bit my lip hard, trying not to make a sound. In the end, I only heard Christian's low panting and his whisper, "Melanie, you should be entangled with me for life. No one can take you away from me. I had a dream." In that dream, Carlos proposed to me. He held me in his arms, swearing to protect me for life and never leave me. I was immersed in his vows, unable to break free. Suddenly, someone pulled me away. I tried to break free, begging Carlos to hold me tighter, but I saw infinite disdain in his expression. "Melanie, I didn't expect you to be this kind of person," Christian's voice sounded from behind. "I told you not to provoke others." That voice of despair. Everything around me turned to nothingness. I fell into a bottomless abyss. A burning sensation spread through my limbs. I could hardly breathe. No, I opened my eyes in fear, finding the surroundings still familiar. I let out a sigh of relief. Christian embraced me from behind, his left hand tightly gripping my waist. In the dream, I couldn't breathe, probably because of him. Christian was awakened by me. He opened his eyes, groggy, and his voice was hoarse. "What's wrong?" I replied softly. "I had a nightmare." He sat up, resting his chin in the crook of my neck, his warm breath blowing on my skin. "What kind of nightmare?" I told him. "It has nothing to do with you. Let go of me. I need to wash up." Christian didn't make things difficult for me when I got out of bed. I walked unsteadily, my collarbone and neck covered with purple kiss marks, showing how wild he had been last night. Cold water splashed on my face, bringing my thoughts back. In the living room, Christian sat on the sofa in his pajamas, casually looking at his phone as if he wasn't the one who humiliated me last night. I rummaged through the cabinets to find the medicine box, took out a small bottle from the deepest corner, poured out a pill, and swallowed it with hot water. "What are you drinking?" Christian asked, furrowing his brows. "Medicine," I replied. "Are you sick?" "What medicine are you taking?" I took a few more sips of water, expressionless, and said, "Birth control pills." My tone was flat. Christian's fingers paused on the screen for a moment, then he spoke. "Lainey, how long have you been taking them?" I sneered. "Don't you know how many times we've done it? I've taken it that many times." Christian threw his phone down and slowly approached me. He picked up the medicine on the table, rubbed it carefully, then raised his hand and threw it into the trash. "What are you doing?" I hurriedly went to rummage through the trash can, but Christian held my body, making me unable to move. "Don't take them anymore. It's bad for your health." I was stunned. I couldn't believe these words came from Christian. "Don't take them. If I get pregnant, will you marry me?" I was taking a gamble, hoping Christian would say those words. Even now, I still had a flicker of hope. I wondered if he said yes. How should I respond? Should I immediately agree or pretend to be reserved, keep my last shred of dignity, and then agree? Unfortunately, I was wrong. Christian was silent for a long time before he slowly spoke. "If you have the child, I can raise him. You don't have to be responsible for his life." Suddenly, I lost all strength. At 25, I finally understood that unrequited love is ultimately pathetic. He said I could get pregnant, have the child, and he would raise him for a lifetime, but he was unwilling to say he would marry me or love me. The phone rang in the bedroom. I pried his fingers off and went back to the bedroom. Every step I took felt like I was walking on my shattered heart. The caller ID showed Carlos. I pressed the answer button. "Hello, Lainey, are you all right?" Last night, anyone could see what Christian had done to me last night. I didn't want him to know about me and Christian, so I lied. "I'm fine." "That's good." After 2 seconds of silence, he asked, "Are you free today? I want to tell you something." Even over the phone, I could hear the tremor in his voice. I already guessed what he was going to say. "Okay, are you going out?" Christian blocked the door. His eyes were filled with questions. "Yes, with whom? A friend." "Which friend?" A sudden surge of anger filled my chest. "Do I have to tell you who I'm going out with? Do you have to interfere in my life?" Tears rolled down my face. I coughed a few times, holding back my frustration. "Let me out." Christian remained unmoved, his voice lowered. "Is that guy from yesterday?" "None of your business." I tried to open the door handle, but Christian suddenly leaned in, pressing his nose against mine. "What's so good about him?" "He just graduated from college, has no money, no power. Everything you want, he can't give you." I looked into Christian's eyes, full of sarcasm. "Christian, he can give me love." "Can you?" Inside, another thought was screaming Chris. "Say you love me. As long as you say you love me, I won't leave." After more than 10 seconds of silence, Christian suddenly lowered his hand. Lainey, whether you stay or go, it's your decision. He threw the dilemma back at me as if I was the one in the wrong. Even now, he still wouldn't say he loved me. If he doesn't love me, why does he insist on keeping me by his side? I've had enough of this endless game. I changed my shoes. And before leaving, I whispered something almost inaudibly goodbye. Uncle, it was a farewell, even more so a final goodbye. I met Carlos at my dessert shop. Raleigh gave me a knowing look and stepped into the kitchen to wash dishes. Carlos called out to me. Melanie, his voice trembled. I actually knew what he was going to say, but at this moment, it was best if I didn't speak. Carlos clenched his fists as if making a firm decision. I like you. Will you be my girlfriend? He asked, not daring to look me in the eyes. That was probably the biggest difference between him and Christian. Christian can whisper sweet nothings to different women, never repeating himself, as if he's offering a sincere heart, but just passing through the flowers without touching a leaf. His feelings come fast and go fast. Carlos is the complete opposite. He doesn't know how to express himself well, only using the clumsiest and simplest way to tell you he likes you and wants to be with you. Even his confession makes him blush. He's the one most suitable for me, always favoring only me. I called Carlos and he was tense. His whole back stiffened. Yeah, I'm here. I shook the coffee cup in front of me, looking out the window. Outside, a few girls who looked like middle school students passed by, wearing school uniforms and ponytails, linking arms, chatting and laughing. I envied them very much. The setting sun cast its last glow into the room. The spoon clinked against the cup, making a crisp sound. I wanted to know, why do you like me? Why do you like someone as broken as me with such a dirty soul? Carlos obviously didn't expect me to ask this. He lowered his head, seriously thinking, with a few strands of hair hanging over his forehead that he didn't bother to fix. Looked adorable, like a high school student solving a difficult problem. I took a sip of coffee, waiting for his answer. Finally, Carlos looked up. This time, he didn't avoid my gaze. You might not believe it, but I actually noticed you on the first day of college. On the second day, I was tossing and turning in bed, and all I could think about was you. By the third day, I was sure I had fallen for you. His tone was sincere, with no hint of pretense. Though it sounds absurd, I truly wasn't lying. I figured out in 3 days that I liked you. I was stunned. Carlos didn't notice my shock. Afraid I'd find it ridiculous, he continued to explain slowly. On the first day, I saw you at the freshman registration. Everyone else had their parents or friends with them, but you were alone, carrying 2 big backpacks, a bag and a suitcase. At that moment, I wondered, how could such a small girl carry so much? On the second day, during military training, the instructor randomly picked you and insisted you show a talent. You sat on the stage and sang Dream Chaser. Before you started, I always thought your voice would be soft and sweet, like a Southern girl's. But when you sang the first line, I was stunned. It was nothing like I imagined. Your voice was clear and powerful. On the third day, you got heat stroke during military training and collapsed on the ground, too weak to move. The instructor asked me to take you to the infirmary. I wanted to carry you, but you refused, insisting you could walk and wouldn't let me touch you. At that moment, Carlos chuckled softly. I thought to myself, why is there a girl so stubborn? Something that could be easily solved by admitting weakness. No, but you had to insist on doing it yourself, making it so hard on yourself. You probably didn't know that day. You walked slowly in front, and I followed you step by step. I still remember you walking unsteadily, but you gritted your teeth and didn't let anyone help. You almost sprained your ankle. At that moment, a strange thought sprouted in my mind. I wanted to protect this girl. I didn't want her to get hurt again. Didn't want to see her pretending to be strong. Didn't want her to be alone.
I wanted
to be the one person by her side, always trusting, supporting, and indulging her unconditionally. The red glow fell over everything, and Carlos's eyes burned with emotion. So, can you give me this chance? He asked. I felt a lump in my throat and couldn't find the words to reply. He told me he'd fallen for me in just 3 days, yet I'd spent 10 years with Christian and hadn't received a single genuine, care from him, I thought. A moth flying into the flame will eventually get burned. I knew it was time to let go. I gently released the cup, placing my hand on Carlos's. "Carlos, I have a secret," I whispered. "A secret I've kept for 10 years. After hearing it, you still want to be with me then? Let's be together." I took a deep breath and told him about Christian, about the nightmares that haunted me night after night. When I reached that night at 18, I hesitated for a long time, unsure whether to tell him. Fragmented memories flooded back, and my emotions started to collapse. I told him about the night I turned 18, about my relationship with my uncle. It wasn't him who forced me, initiated it. I thought my passion could change him, but he never took me seriously. He treated me as an insignificant bad companion, disrespected me, humiliated me, and never loved me. From beginning to end, it was all just my wishful thinking. Recalling everything with Christian, I couldn't find a single moment worth reminiscing. The depression weighed heavily on my chest, making it hard to speak. To Carlos, "I'm not the clean girl you think." "I am," I whispered. "My life, my body, my thoughts, they're all filthy. Can you really accept that?" I couldn't bear another blow. I couldn't imagine what I'd do if Carlos rejected me after knowing all this, but I had to tell him it was an unchangeable truth. After I finished, silence stretched on. I withdrew my hand from his, not knowing how long it had been. I heard him say, "It's a bit dirty." That one sentence shattered my heart, which I had worked so hard to rebuild into pieces. I understood. I stood up, the chair scraping loudly against the floor. Carlos suddenly pulled me into his arms. My nose pressed against his chest, and I caught the faint, clean scent. Just laundry. Detergent completely different from the strong tobacco and various perfumes that clung to Christian. I didn't understand what he meant. Carlos gently took out a napkin, wiping away my tears. He smiled softly. "All right, no more tears. You're not dirty." Seeing my tear-filled eyes, he sighed, wrapping his left arm around my waist and patting my back with his right hand to comfort me. "Don't cry. No matter what happens to me, you'll always be you." I nestled into his arms, trying to relax, feeling the softness of his embrace. Carlos rested his chin on my head and finally said, "No matter what your past was like, I just want your future to belong to me." When I got home, I decided to confront Christian. The living room lights were on, but no one was there. I heard noises coming from the bedroom, and as I approached, I realized it was the sound of a man and woman together. By the shoe cabinet, there were a pair of 10 centimeters heels next to the leather shoes I had given Christian. Without showing any emotion, I turned back and went to my room, changed into pajamas, and headed to the bathroom. I then heard voices in the living room, followed by Kelly's surprised voice. "Lainey, when did you get back?" she asked, rushing. Over with disheveled clothes, messy hair, and a strange smell about her, Kelly's face was flushed. "You didn't hear anything, did you?" It spat out the mouthwash. Christian appeared as soon as we spoke, and our eyes met in the mirror. It seemed like he wanted to say something, but in the end, he went along with Kelly's words. "I'll take you back first, okay?" she said. After they left the house, was silent again. I lay on the bed and saw a message from Carlos. "Are you asleep?" I replied, "Not yet," he responded. "Get some rest early. Don't overthink things. Okay? You have a boyfriend now, so if you have any problems, make sure to contact me first. Don't shoulder it alone, understand?" Could almost picture his face as he typed those words, like an old mentor giving me advice. I smiled and replied, "Got it." After chatting with him for a little while, a wave of exhaustion hit me, and I closed my phone, ready to rest. Suddenly, the side of the bed sank, and a pair of hands wrapped around my waist. Christian's nose pressed against the back of my neck, his hands becoming restless. "Uncle, I'm on my period today," I whispered. His hands froze suddenly. Besides, wasn't that round just now enough? Had Kelly not served him well? Christian thought I was jealous and explained, "I drank too much tonight. Lost control. I didn't mean to be with her at home." I didn't want to hear his so-called explanation. The urgent need was to draw a clear line between us. The farther the better. Christian held me, inhaling the scent of my hair. "Lainey, just stay by my side, okay?" he said. Whatever you want, I'll give it to you. I thought Christian was a complete pervert. For example, now he was full of deep affection, as if he couldn't live without me, yet he never mentioned loving me, and he was extremely rough in bed. I hated that. All my emotions were tied to him. I hated that I was always moved to tears by his few words. I didn't want to be a slave anymore. In the darkness, I turned over and took the initiative. To wrap my arms around his waist, Christian looked somewhat incredulous. This was the first time I had yielded to him. I muffled. Uncle Christian, it's my birthday. I want to go to Paris. Will you take me? Without hesitation, Christian agreed. Okay. That night, he slept very soundly, but didn't forget to hold me tightly, not letting me go. Planned to leave because I knew this would be our last night together. After that night, he and I would have nothing to do with each other anymore. Christian moved quickly, and the day before Christmas, we boarded a plane to Paris. Everything had been arranged: travel, accommodation, meals, all handled by him. If it had been in the past, I might have been touched, thinking he had some feelings for me. Now, I just found it laughable. The Eiffel Tower stood tall against the clouds. Countless couples and children gathered by the river, their laughter and playful shouts reaching my ears. Couldn't help but look at them. Christian, with his arm around my shoulder, asked, "What are you looking at?" I pointed to a couple kissing nearby. Looking at them, Christian pinched my cheek. "How old are you? Aren't you embarrassed?" His eyes were smiling, as if we were really a flirty couple. Not far away, a tourist approached us, holding a camera, and asked in English, "Are you lovers?" Christian was about to answer, but I beat him to it. "No, he's my uncle." Christian's eyes darkened, but I ignored it. The man looked a little surprised, but quickly recovered and continued chatting with me. "Sorry," I said with a smile, indicating it was okay. The man asked if he could take some photos of Christian and me. He offered to give us one for free and keep a copy himself. Christian nodded. Many street artists do this. I guessed Christian leaned slightly toward me, tilting his head to look at me. I stared at the camera, my smile deepening. I didn't glance at Christian. The Polaroid camera spat out several photos, and after a couple of minutes, the images became clear. The man asked us to pick the one we liked. I was about to choose a random one, but Christian carefully selected, looking serious. In the end, he chose the third one. He looked at me with eyes full of emotion. I looked at the camera, smiling happily. Later at dinner, Christian drank a lot. Back at the hotel, I struggled to drag him to bed. He grabbed my arm, refusing to. "Let me go, Lainey." Christian's voice was soft, unlike his usual cold tone. He pulled me into his arms forcefully. "Uncle, you're drunk," I reminded him. Christian didn't move, stubbornly refusing to let go. After a long while, I felt wetness spreading in the crook of my neck. He was crying. "I'm an illegitimate child. Everyone thinks I should die," he whispered. Christian held me tightly, afraid I might escape. When I was a child, my mother told me every day that I had to succeed, prove myself, and reclaim what was rightfully mine. At school, people always pointed at me, gossiping behind my back, saying my mother was unscrupulous, and that I was a scourge. People bullied me, not just with words, but physically too. They locked me in dark rooms, poured cold soup on me, and wouldn't let me out for an entire day. When I was 20, my mother passed away. It took another 20 years before I finally met my biological father. Maybe it was karma. He had no other children but me. He took me home, but everyone there, including the servants, always looked at me with disdain, sometimes deliberately making things difficult. And that's when I finally understood. Only when you become strong, when you hold all the power, can others respect and fear you. Only then will they stop bullying you. Christian caressed my waist, and I realized I had to become strong step by step, climbing the pyramid to reach the top. I wanted to be a powerful person who looked down on everyone. Over the years, I saw too many women pretending to love me, trying everything to stay close. But as soon as someone richer or more powerful appeared, they eagerly threw themselves at him. No one truly loved me. As he finished speaking, Christian slumped against me, treating me as his only reliance. "Lainey, only you love me," Christian murmured, telling me about his childhood. I suddenly understood him a bit more. Power, status, and money were his relentless pursuits. His life, those things were the most important in his world. Everything else was just an accessory. As he fell asleep, I asked a question. "Chris, will you marry me?" His eyelashes trembled. "Forget it," I said, laughing at myself. "After all, you're still that Christian, Norris." Christian was like a different person after we returned home. He started treating me gently, speaking softly, considering my feelings. He no longer controlled my life as he used to. I understood his purpose. He didn't want me to leave him. But this was the most he could give me. The legal status of his wife still belonged to another woman. On Valentine's Day, I did something. Christian went out to dinner with C, and I found my ID card and household registration book. I arranged to meet Carlos at South City Park. I arrived half an hour early and sat on a bench, waiting. "Sorry I'm late," Carlos panted, sweat covering his forehead. For the first time, I felt what it was like to be truly valued by someone. I looked up, my eyes filled with a gentle smile. "Carlos, I'm here," I said. He didn't respond. With a simple, "What's up?" or "Yeah," but just with, "I'm here." Even if I heard that sentence 1,000 times, it would still touch my heart. I slowly stood up and met his gaze. "I want to get married. Will you marry me?" The cold wind carried his response to my ears. Carlos gently stroked my head. "Okay, but let's be clear, if you marry me, you can't regret it. I'll secretly hide the marriage certificate so you'll never find it. And you'll never be able to divorce me," he said in a tough tone, as if he really wanted to scare me into giving up. I thought he was adorably silly. How could I possibly divorce him? A lone boat finds a harbor to dock. It will never leave. I won't. He gave me love, and I could give him the same. With no one around, I tiptoed and lightly touched his lips. Unexpectedly, Carlos held my head, not letting me go. When we finally stopped, both of us were panting lightly. His lips weren't as cold as Christian's. His lips were warm. "Carlos, do you love me?" I asked. "I love you," he replied. At 26, I finally heard those 3 words. Christian was stingy and reluctant to say it to me. Now someone else said them, and I could love someone else too. Carlos and I registered our marriage the day after Valentine's Day, outside the Civil Affairs Bureau. He was still in shock, unable to believe what had just happened. I pinched him, then took his hand and knocked his head a few times. "It's really not a dream," I said. Carlos was extremely excited, lifting me up and spinning me around. I was happier than he was. I had finally let go of the past those years of pain and suffering, torment every day. I finally wrapped myself in a cocoon. Carlos helped me find my way back, and the gloom began to lift. A new life was finally beginning. But this happiness didn't last long. On the way to the bridal shop with Carlos, I got a call from Christian. Even though I was worried, I still urged myself to answer, knowing I'd be with Carlos no matter what. "Whatever it is, I'll be with you." I pressed the answer button. Christian's tone was gloomy. "Where are you? Come home immediately." Then he hung up before I could say a word. Carlos heard everything clearly. He took my hand and said, "I'll go back with you." But I shook my head. "No need. This is between me and him. I'll handle it myself." Some things needed to be dealt with alone to truly forget. Carlos said he'd wait for me downstairs before heading upstairs. I slipped a folding knife into my pocket, my instincts told. Christian had found out something about me and Carlos. Christian sat on the sofa, legs crossed, leaning back, silent. Me hesitated at the door. He lowered his voice. "Come here." Didn't move. He repeated, "Come here." I told him, "Uncle, if you have something to say, just say it. I can hear you from here." He called again, "Come to my side." I hesitated. Christian picked up an ashtray and threw it at my feet, shattering the glass everywhere. A small piece grazed my cheek, leaving a shallow cut. His eyes were red with anger. He got up and grabbed my arm, pressing me against the security door. "Melanie, you better explain why your household registration and ID aren't at home. Why does your location show you at the Civil Affairs Bureau all morning? What the hell were you doing?" I secretly reached for the small knife in my pocket. "Uncle, since you already guessed why ask me?" I said with a smile. Aren't you going to wish me a happy wedding? Christian suddenly grabbed my neck. I knew he would do that. His surface-level gentleness was based on my recent obedience and submission. He thought I had come to my senses and was willing to stay by his side without any status or title, just a pet or a doll he could play with whenever he wanted. Of course I had come to my senses. I realized I needed to escape him completely, never see him again in this life. As the air grew thin in my throat, I trembled and stabbed the small knife into his arm.
Ow.
The sound of the blade piercing flesh was loud. Christian winced in pain and let go. His voice trembled. You want to kill me? I didn't respond. After the storm just now, I felt even calmer. The smell of blood filled my nose. Uncle, you need to calm down, I said. Christian laughed angrily, ignoring his wound, and punched the doorframe beside my face. In just one morning, I couldn't keep an eye on you, and you went to marry another man. Melanie, what do you take me for? Coming and going as you please, that question should be asked by me. I looked into his eyes. Christian, what do you take me for? He was speechless, unable to answer. I took a deep breath and reflected on every moment we had shared. I am your bed companion, your outlet when you're unhappy, a doll you can play with, a pawn you can manipulate any time, someone you'd abandon first when weighing pros and cons. The old me could ignore all this. I brought it on myself, and could bear the consequences. But now, I didn't want to anymore. I was a person with flesh and blood, capable of independent thought. I felt pain and exhaustion too. From age 18 to 26, I had reached my limit. Christian, from beginning to end. All I ever wanted was someone who believed in me unconditionally, favored me, and always cared. But you can't give me these things. Naturally, someone else can. I'm no longer waiting for you. Just saying. The weight in my heart lifted. I had trapped myself in this cocoon for 8 years. This distorted love needed to end. Christian listened silently, not moving for a long time. Just before I pushed him away, he lowered his head, seemingly. Making a decision? Lainey, he finally said. Divorce him. I sneered. Christian, what right do you have to order me? He ignored my sarcasm. Divorce him, I'll marry you. Time seemed to freeze for a few seconds. Why should I believe you? A man who values power, status, and money as his life? How could he possibly let me be Mrs. Norris? To you, Christian grabbed my arm, blood dripping down to my wrist. If you divorce him now, I can take you to get a marriage certificate immediately. But what about Kelly? Mentioning Kelly, Christian fell silent. I knew him too well. Saying he would marry me was just a fleeting impulse. He hadn't thought about how to handle the relationship between C and me. He was afraid I'd run away. In the end, it was just that Christian felt Carlos had taken his place in my heart. He didn't love me at all. His obsession had driven him mad. Christian, you don't love me? You only love yourself? I said. The 10-minute deadline was almost up. I was afraid Carlos would really call the police, so I thought I'd better resolve this quickly. Christian, I will move out. Thank you for taking care of me these past 10 years. From now on, unless it's something important, let's not see each other again. I opened the door, ready to leave, but Christian grabbed my hand. His touch was gentle, no longer rough like before. Lainey, I love you, he finally said. Those 3 words I had longed to hear. Maybe Christian thought that by saying this, he could make me stay. As the sensor light turned on, I turned slightly and slowly freed myself from his grip. His eyes darkened. Christian, you had many chances to say those words. If you'd realized your feelings sooner and had the courage to say them, our ending wouldn't be like this. I gave you 3 chances. The first time, I asked if you'd marry me if I got pregnant. The second time, before I went to find Carlos, I asked if you could love me. The third time, the night before I left Paris, I asked again. 3 times, and each time, you stayed silent and avoided the question. A match only needs to be struck once to ignite, but its burn is short. Once it burns out, there's no more flame. So, let it go. The match is burned out. The alarm rang. 10 minutes were up. I resolutely turned around. The elevator arrived. I pressed the button for the first floor and made eye contact with Christian. As the doors slowly closed, I saw him form the words with his mouth. I'm sorry. I transferred the store to Riley, telling her I was leaving. She was reluctant, her eyes red. Boss, remember to contact me when you get to the new place. I smiled and gently pinched her chubby cheeks. I will. But now, you're the boss. Carlos took me away from the city where I had lived for 10 years. Told him I liked small towns' foggy weather, small boats on the river, houses along the shore. He took me to settle in the south. One day, I received a package. The sender was C. Inside was YSL's Libra perfume. I sprayed a little on myself, and the fragrance filled the whole living room. As I smelled it, I examined the box. I already knew the answer in my heart. Christian had never let me wear makeup before until I left him. I had barely touched any cosmetics. Maybe he felt guilty for depriving me of a young girl's dreams, so he wanted to make up for it. YSL has a phrase that explains it. I love you. You are free. I believe he understood that why he sent me this. The aroma of food wafted from the kitchen, overshadowing the perfume scent. Carlos poked his head out. We'll wash your hands. It's time to eat. I put the perfume away, locked it in a drawer with a key, then threw the key into the trash can. As the sun set, I turned around and smiled with relief. I'm coming.